Well, in the tradition of this year's roster of shorties, I think it's time that we cover some new territory for the channel today. On this episode, we're going to be looking at an experimental short film that was written, directed, and edited by a student filmmaker who has close ties with Shion Sono, who you'll remember as the auteur behind Suicide Club. What are we talking about? Something provocative, something eye-catching, something strange. We're talking about Ami.exe.
Ami.exe is the first film by Meiseikimu Genshi, a current student of Waseda University in Tokyo. Genshi says that as a child he wanted to be a mangaka, or manga creator, but that as he grew, an affinity for film grew with him, which led him to pursue directing as a career. In particular, Shion Sono, Sogo Ishii, Nagisa Oshima, and Koji Wakamatsu were the directors who, quote, changed my life because I found so many similarities between what I wanted to make and what they made themselves, end quote.
This came to a head when Meiseikimu Genshi met Shion Sono, who makes a brief appearance in the film, several years ago at a film festival, where he approached Sono and told him he was Sono's biggest fan, and that he one day wished to work for him. Before Genshi moved to Tokyo, Sono offered for him to stay at his house there, and a friendship budded between the two. This grew with Genshi contributing to Sono's productions of The Virgin Psychics and Anti-Porno. Now that Genshi is a university student in Tokyo, they have remained close friends. Why is this important, though? Well, because Sono seems to have seen something in Genshi, which has certainly come to fruition with this mind-blowing short film.
With all of that out of the way, you might be asking yourself, just what is Ami.exe? Well, lucky for you, hypothetical person asking this question, we were able to get in touch with Meiseikimu Genshi and secure an interview with him, where he illuminated us on some of the finer points of his frankly bizarre and breathtaking first work.
The film concerns the audience, represented here by the camera, and the person behind it, meeting a young woman named Ami, who seems unhappy with her life. We talk with her and she explains very candidly where her unhappiness comes from, what it is that made her withdraw into her own shell. She seems to embody the discontent of Japan's generation of millennials with what they perceive to be the absurdity of life and the depression and anxiety that many feel in this post-internet age. While being very emotional in this regard, the film is also disconcerting and captivating in its aesthetic, which feels like a hybrid of a video game, a dream, and an 18-minute onslaught of visual computer glitches. Where to even begin with all of this? Well, why not with the inspiration behind the visuals?
For starters, Genshi comments that, quote, the biggest inspiration I'm aware of are my dreams, end quote. He went on to say, quote, about the messages of the film, it's all from a dream. I met a nude model at a party. She was like a tragic beauty, and I got fascinated by the death drive that was transcending every single one of her moves or words. She reminded me of Mia Wallace in Pulp Fiction, the only thing I really like about that film, to be honest. When I got back home, I'd look at her blog and find a lot of suicidal posts next to her nude pictures. She was obviously going through an existential crisis that I would call high schoolish. The next night, I dreamt about Ami.exe. There was no split screen or glitch, but there were dialogue boxes. That nude model was Ami. I woke up in the middle of the night and wrote everything I could, and the next day I turned it into Ami.exe's script. End quote.
Thus, the narrative itself is very surreal and dreamlike. It flows between ideas, rather than following an inherently linear structure, instead favoring something more akin to a cycle. Highlighting the surreal nature here is the film's glitch aesthetic, which plays brilliantly on the medium of digital video. It reminds me of a recent episode of Twin Peaks, which seemed to play on the digital streaming medium which most of its viewers use at this point. Both this sequence and Ami.exe have moments where you as a viewer know something is inherently wrong, and which may make you question whether it's the film itself or the digital streaming source. It inspires an uneasy feeling in the viewer, a type of manipulation of the audience achieved by manipulating your expectations on a meta level, and it does wonders for the film's tone.
Genshi commented that the decision to incorporate visual glitches was in part inspired by American artist Takeshi Murata's glitch work, as well as a sequence from the film Holy Motors, on which Genshi stated, quote, you can tell that Jacques Perconte, the sequence's director, was more like a guest. It didn't bring anything to the narration, end quote. Effectively, Genshi wanted to take the idea of glitch art, a fairly recent art movement that focuses on the beauty of unintentional errors, and fully convert it to film, using programs like AVI Demux 2 and Node.js to achieve these effects. This adaptation of glitch art to film is what caught my eye in the first place about the project. It seemed to me like something fresh that I hadn't seen done in my experience with film. This ties into Genshi's personal goals as a filmmaker. When asked about the film's visuals, he stated, quote, "I don't know any better feeling than creating something that I imagined. Ami.exe is my first film, but I also wrote a lot of scripts, some for feature films, and I could say that I live especially to shoot them one day. I watched a lot of films and started to be pretty harsh about everything because my tastes became too precise. There are certain films that I'd love to watch, but I have the feeling that they don't exist like I imagine them. So, my goal is to make these kinds of films." End quote. Which of course may account for the bold, original nature of this piece. Genshi is the kind of passionate filmmaker who is making films that he hasn't seen before, because they're the types of films he wants to see.
This originality extends beyond the glitch aesthetic, though, with Genshi incorporating the language of video games into the film. As you'll notice, in Ami.exe, the camera takes on the persona of the viewer, with dialogue boxes appearing to indicate what the invisible man behind the camera is saying to Ami, who is essentially the sole voice in this piece. As a side note, this decision to portray the film as a non-interactive video game bolsters the reasoning behind using the glitch aesthetic. Concerning this choice to use the language of video games, which helps lend to the atmosphere and depressed tone of the film, Genshi said, quote, "I'm not a gamer, but I still really feel the influence of games I used to play when I was in junior school. Pokemon, Final Fantasy, classics. One of the things I loved most about those games were the dialogues. I still remember lots of them. Now I can actually notice that a lot of these dialogues had a lot of hidden meanings that we can't get as a child. There is some melancholy in it. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of millennials' depression had started with something like Pokemon. Anyway, I hadn't seen this done in a film before either, and I liked the idea. That's why I decided to try." End quote.
We are effectively taking on the role of the protagonist in this game, or in Genshi's own dream, where we live through what he remembers in the first person. We are given a voice, but only through text. Scene transitions and framing borrow heavily from the video game aesthetic, helping to draw in the viewer and to help them project onto the unseen cameraman. For the first half of the film or so, people act as though they're background extras in a video game, rather than a film. The logic behind the narrative, while essentially dreamlike, could also be likened to that of a video game in how it progresses between its plot points. Overall, Ami.exe feels like a smoothie of glitch art, video games, and dreams. A very melancholic smoothie that's moving, and that will sit in the pit of your stomach long after you drink it. One that you'll want to blend up and consume again and again.
The film's soundtrack, which is something akin to a vaporwave soundscape, was composed by Genshi's friend and up-and-coming musician Chotosuki. Several tracks are derived from Chokosuke's first album, Mother Nature's Silver Seed, while others are original tracks created specifically for Ami.exe. It's a combination of raucous electronic tracks and haunting ambience, which contribute so much in terms to the mood of the film. Both albums are available for purchase, with the first being released on cassette by No Problema Tapes, a label out of Chile, and the second being available from multiple sources digitally, released by Kaiseki Digital.
Ami.exe was written in October of 2016, then shot in 3 days in December. The actress who portrayed Ami, Haruka Kuwana, got Genshi's attention by flagging him down at a movie theater and reminding him that they had met previously at a film festival. She, according to Genshi, was the only professional actor on the project, with the extras and background characters being friends from university and passersby in Tokyo. In the second half of the film in particular, this contributes to the lonely feeling of the film. These aren't big-name actors, they're just everyday people who don't know how to act concerning what Ami is doing in the streets of Tokyo. Haruka Kuwana, meanwhile, blows it out of the water with her emotionally charged performance. It's easy to see then how some people that Genshi has encountered in screening the film were able to project so heavily onto and connect so deeply with Kuwana's Ami.
After completion, the film was shown as an installation at the Tokyo Metropolitan Museum, where it was played on loop due to its cyclical nature. This was the first proper screening before the film was submitted for consideration at the PIA Film Festival in Tokyo. When speaking about the museum installation, Genshi stated,
quote, "Some people actually stood in front of the monitor for an hour or two, watching it over and over again. When I'd ask them what they thought about it, they told me they couldn't get the film out of their mind because it made them think about their missing part. 2 of them projected themselves too much into Ami and cried while watching. I was really glad that some people took it so strongly even though it's just a first amateur short film. So maybe thinking about one's missing part might be a thing to take away from the film." End quote.
Despite his modesty, there's something remarkable about Meiseki Mugenshi's style and eye for film. As with these people at the museum installation, I have to agree that it's difficult to shake the film from my mind.
With such a hefty impact, the film is notable as being self-funded by Genshi and the film's cameraman, Matthias Adam. Genshi says that he took up part-time work outside of school to fund the project, which cost a mere $450, a cost that the two split down the middle. This is an example like with the works of Hollywood, including the modern classic Who Killed Captain Alex, which proves that for a burgeoning filmmaker in the post-internet age, money is not an issue. If we can inject some of ourselves into the video here, neither of us expected to learn that the film was shot on such a low budget, nor that it was from a first-time filmmaker, given just how damn good it looks. This proves two things in our minds. One, that Meiseki Mugenshi is definitely a filmmaker to be on the lookout for. With such a breathtaking first project, who can say what he's going to produce next? And two, that if you're the type of person who really wants to make films, you can find a way to do so. If a full-time university student in Tokyo can produce a film like this for less than $1,000, then so can you. If you have the passion and the drive and the want to make art, you will find a way, and you will find people who can help you achieve that. Just take Ami.exe as both an incredible first work and a motivator to do what you want to do.
For those of you, like us, hungering for more after seeing Ami.exe, have no fear. Genshi has given us assurances that 2 more parts are planned, with the second already completed and set to be released this month, and the third already shooting. As a side note, concerning the shoestring budget that the first part was shot on, well, the second part was mostly made using similar materials, meaning that Genshi quotes it as costing only about $50. There's no word on how much the third part might cost to produce, but Genshi says that it will be the longest of the 3.
Genshi stated that he views Ami.exe as a 3-part story, meaning it can be one contiguous film when the multiple parts are assembled into one longer piece, something he intends to do in order to give the film proper screenings outside of festivals and installations. For now though, we can enjoy Ami.exe as 3 separate short films, with the first one being available right now online, and the second expected to arrive after its submission to film festivals. Check the description below for links to the first film and for a link to the project's Facebook page, where updates are posted regularly. Also, if you're interested in the soundtrack for the film, or Chotosuke's other works, you can find links below for his music, which is all available for purchase right now.
Here's to hoping that Meiseki Mugenshi continues on the path on which he has set with Ami.exe. This intense, trippy first short film is something that we would love to visit again in the future, when more parts are available, perhaps for a deep analysis of the full feature-length film. But we're also waiting patiently for whatever comes next from Genshi. Perhaps once he's graduated from Waseda University, he'll take on filmmaking full-time. And if this film is any indication, he is extremely worthy of the opportunity.
We want to give a very big thank you to Meiseki Mugenshi for granting us an interview for this episode. Seriously, the film is totally free streaming right now. Just check the description below. You're not going to be disappointed. If you guys know of any other small filmmakers who might be interested in being featured on the show, just let us know. Let us know how we might be able to get in touch with them. And thank you everybody for watching. This has been a really fun episode to work on. It's been a very illuminating experience, so I hope it's been that way for you guys too. Anyway, let us know in the comments below what do you want to see covered on the show in the future, and what did you guys think of Ami.exe? Thanks for watching everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.